"Look what I found yesterday," he said, bringing home a branded dress for our daughter. It was an ordinary day, not her birthday, Christmas, or anything like that. My husband, Jim, smiles as he handed the dress to our daughter. It was a bit expensive for a gift. I wondered if there was nothing for our son, Sean. As I watched, no present was given to him. Turning my gaze towards my son, I saw him intently watching the exchange between my husband and our daughter. My daughter Anna, only 3 years old, happily reached for the branded dress. She innocently exclaimed, "Yay, pretty!" Concerned about her son, I tried to divert his attention. "Sean, look, your favorite cartoon is on TV," I said, but he kept his eyes fixed on the dress in our daughter's hands. I am Kathy, a 35-year-old housewife. 5 years ago, I divorced my ex and took custody of my 1-year-old son, Sean, and met my current husband, Jim, while figuring out how to live as a single mother. Jim was a regular customer at the diner where I started working part-time right after my divorce. We got close through casual conversations and eventually exchanged phone numbers. Being of the same age, we quickly hit it off. We met up frequently and we both started thinking about marriage. I loved Jim, but my main concern was always Sean. Sean's well-being was my top priority, so even though I was considering marriage, I had my doubts. However, Jim was always kind to Sean. Sean also grew fond of him, which led me to decide on remarriage. I hoped to build a better family life for Sean this time. Our life after remarriage was as happy as I had imagined. Jim remained as kind as before the marriage, and Sean seemed happy to have a father. On days off, we went to the park as a family, playing catch and having fun. My relationship with Jim was good. Shortly after our marriage, we had our daughter, Anna, and started our new life as a family of 4. It was a peaceful, fulfilling life, with daily happiness from seeing the smiles of my husband and children. But as days passed, I started to feel troubled about our life. The kids grew quickly, and when Sean turned 5 and Anna 3, they started kindergarten. They got along well, but the problem was Jim's attitude. Initially, Jim showed equal love to both Sean and Anna, but as they grew, his behavior changed. Returning from the park, he would always wash hands with Anna first, serve her snacks first, and begin to favor her. At first, I thought it was trivial, but Jim's affection increasingly focused only on Anna. I wondered if it was because fathers naturally favor their daughters. But how could my gentle husband do that? Was there a reason? Despite my thoughts, I couldn't accept this change in his attitude and kept convincing myself it was just my imagination. However, the reality didn't change, and Jim's attitude towards Sean only worsened. His attention increasingly shifted to Anna. I thought, is it because Anna is his blood-related child? The thought alone brought me to tears. The difference in his attitude became more obvious. He would only hold hands, play, and cuddle with Anna. And seeing Sean watching them from a distance made me feel unbearable. I once asked Jim, "Hey, can you pay a bit more attention to Sean?" But he simply replied, "Of course, I do that, right?" Eventually, even when Sean tried to join into their conversation, Jim ignored him. Despite Sean's repeated attempts to get his attention, Jim finally snapped, "Quiet." Seeing Sean's sad face, I lost it. "Sean's been trying to get your attention for a while. Why ignore him? You can hear him." I confronted Jim, but Jim retorted, "What did I do wrong? It's Sean's fault for interrupting me and Anna. I want to talk to Anna. Don't bother us." His attitude towards Sean got worse from there. Jim would visit his parents' house a few times a month, always on weekends when Sean had baseball practice. Sean, having developed an interest in baseball through playing catch with Jim, had joined a local team and was quite skilled. At first, I thought Jim's schedule overlapping with Sean's practice were coincidental, but as it happened repeatedly and Jim took only Anna to his parents, I started to suspect he was doing it intentionally. After a month of this, Jim came home one day and said, "I found this yesterday. Isn't it perfect for our cute Anna?" He handed Anna a branded dress. It was an ordinary day, not her birthday, Christmas, or anything like that. Jim handed the dress to Anna with a smile. It was an expensive gift. I wondered if there was nothing for Sean, but nothing was given to him. Sean just watched Jim and Anna's interaction. Anna happily reached for the dress Jim offered. She joyfully shouted, "Yay! Pretty!" Concerned for Sean, I tried to distract him. "Sean, look, your favorite cartoon is on TV," I said, but he kept looking at the dress in Anna's hands. Ignoring Sean, Jim and Anna were in their own world.
"This dress will definitely suit you, Anna. Let's wear it next time we go to Grandma's house."
"Yes, I'll show it to Grandma. Thanks, Dad." Anger surged within me as Jim ignored Sean and talked happily with Anna. I couldn't stand Jim's behavior and was about to say something. That's when Sean dropped a bombshell.
"Dad, is that the one you bought with Mrs. Lisa yesterday?"
Mrs. Lisa, mentioned by my son, is a teacher at the kindergarten attended by our children. She's young, charming, and popular among the parents for her friendliness. I couldn't understand why she was being brought up in this context. As I pondered, my son, Sean, pressed on, asking his father, Jim. "Right, Dad?" It seemed Sean was sure about something. Jim, who had been responsive until then, suddenly became silent. I turned to look at him. His expression was frozen. His face was completely pale. For a moment, I was worried whether he was even breathing. Then Jim stuttered.
"What are you talking about?"
I watched him with a cold gaze as he blurted out a clumsy excuse.
"I found this on my way home from work. Thought Anna might like it. I'll look for something Sean will like next time. What do you like, huh? Oh, it's time for my bath."
With that, he nervously retreated to his room. Unable to fully hide the situation, my distrust towards Jim grew. The next day, Jim went to work as usual, showing no sign of his previous nervousness. While giving snacks to the kids back from kindergarten, I probed. "That's right, Anna. You must be happy with the dress from Dad yesterday. Sean, about what you said, what do you mean that your father bought it with Mrs. Lisa?" Sean, munching on a cream puff, replied,
"Oh, that. I heard it from Anna. She often meets Mrs. Lisa when he goes out."
"What? Mrs. Lisa from kindergarten?"
"Yeah. You know her, right, Mom?"
"Yes, I know her, but..." I casually asked. "Oh, is it a coincidence? Why? Is it maybe because Mrs. Lisa lives nearby?"
"I don't know that, but Mrs. Lisa found the dress. Right, Anna?"
"Yeah, Mrs. Lisa said it was cute in the store. When Dad and I are out, Mrs. Lisa often comes there."
"I see. Good that she found you a cute dress. Where did you meet her? Near Grandma's house?"
"No, we went there by car, to a place with lots of shops."
Anna, being only 3, couldn't explain well, but I could only think of one place with many shops, the newly built shopping center. Listening to the kids, I speculated. Perhaps Jim was meeting Mrs. Lisa at the shopping center, taking Anna along for a shopping date. If that were true, it was unforgivable. Not just the cheating, but using the kids as a cover for it was despicable. Jim had adored Sean before we had Anna, but his attitude changed blatantly after having his own child. This made me feel bad for him as well as a growing anger within me. Having gleaned this information from the kids, I decided to cool my head. Thinking about how to get back at Jim, I reached out to my friend from high school, Becky. She's been divorced twice and she's a single mother, having gone through many tough situations. Becky promptly replied to my message. "Oh, that's bad news. Definitely fishy." Her blunt message left me feeling like I had been thrown into the abyss, despite being prepared for it. She advised, "First, observe your husband. Check the car navigation history if he goes out. Also, keep an eye on the other woman. Might be good to hire a private investigator. I'll recommend one." Hiring an investigator would cost money, but it's necessary. Following Becky's advice, I started with what I could do and checked the car navigation history, but found no record. I had never thought to check this before and assumed it was just how it worked. Becky later suggested that Jim might have deleted the history to hide evidence. Frustrated by how naive I've been and Jim's secretive behavior, I decided to check Mrs. Lisa's behavior at the kindergarten. She greeted the children with a warm smile as usual. "Good morning. Thank you for today."
"Ah, morning, Kathy. Hello, Sean, Anna. Ready for a fun day?" Let's play together. I'll take good care of you.
Despite our usual conversation, there was no change in her demeanor. The thought of her betraying me with a friendly smile was almost enough to make me distrust people altogether. I had already requested a private investigator who assured me,
"We'll report any developments."
So, it was a waiting game. Jim, oblivious to my suspicions, continued to dote on Anna as usual. About 2 weeks later, the investigator contacted me.
"We've caught him in the act."
The next day, an envelope from the investigator's office contained several photos, including one of Jim grinning with Lisa, caught in their carefree moments. The photos showed them being affectionate with each other. Struggling to breathe as I looked at them, I tried to calm my anger. Meanwhile, Jim was still clueless. That night, he casually mentioned,
"I've got to go to my parents' house this weekend."
I feigned interest. "Oh, really? Anything I can help with?" Jim, slightly flustered, replied,
"No, I've got it. You have Sean's baseball, right? I'll take Anna. Don't worry."
Holding back my swirling anger, I replied with a fake smile, "Sure, give my regards to your mom." Jim, not anticipating what was coming, reassured me with a relaxed face.
"Yep, got it. Don't worry."
He must have taken my smile as genuine kindness. Determined to do more than just present him with divorce papers, I steadily prepared for a plan to confront him this weekend. Unaware of everything, my husband Jim seemed excited as the weekend approached. And then the weekend came. "I'm off to watch Sean's baseball game."
"All right, I'm taking Anna to visit my parents' house. Might be back late."
After this exchange, I was sure Jim was meeting Lisa today, given his overly cheerful tone. Pretending to be oblivious, I left the house with Sean before Jim. Before leaving, I had sneakily placed a small GPS tracker in Anna's backpack. Even if he erased the car navigation history, I could track where they went. While watching Sean's game, I kept checking the GPS on my smartphone. The tracker seemed to be working well. The GPS showed their movements. Instead of his parents' house, Jim and Anna arrived at a trendy park near the sea, likely to meet Lisa there. Just imagining that scene filled me with alternating waves of anger and revenge. As planned, I called my mother. I had already informed my parents about the evidence of the affair, so the conversation was quick. "Hello, Mom. He just went out saying he's visiting his parents."
"I've already checked with them. He's not there." "All right, proceed as planned."
"Okay, thanks." After ending the call, I asked a mom friend to take Sean home and headed back myself. On my way, I received a message from my mom saying,
"Everything's done as planned."
I had conspired with my parents and in-laws to make Jim confess. Once Jim said he was leaving for his parents, my mother-in-law called him saying, "I'm nearby and would like to stop by your house. I won't see Sean, but I'd love to see Anna." I had already given them Jim's contact information. I couldn't be at home when my parents arrived, or the lie would be exposed. Receiving the call, Jim would rush home in a panic. We all planned to confront him there. By now, Jim would be hurrying back. Soon after I got home, both my parents and in-laws arrived. We showed them the photos of the affair sent by the detective. Both sets of parents sighed as they flipped through them.
"How shameful. Taking only Anna."
They repeated words like disgraceful and embarrassing as they looked at the photos. About an hour after we arrived, Jim came home flustered. Seeing his father's car, he must have panicked. He stormed into the room.
"Mom, what's this sudden visit? Huh? Kathy's parents too? What's going on with everyone here?"
Jim was clearly confused by the gathering of both families. My mother stood up, took Anna, who was beside a bewildered Jim, and went to another room. My father-in-law said in a stern voice,
"Sit down."
The table was laid with photos of the affair. Jim, sweating profusely, finally understood the gravity of the situation and sat down. The confrontation with Jim lasted about an hour. After a thorough grilling from my father, the in-laws, and me, Jim was forcibly taken to his parents' house by his father. During the discussion, Jim kept making pathetic excuses like,
"It was just a whim. I was going to stop."
Seeing my state of anger and sadness, my father-in-law assured me,
"It must be unpleasant for you to be with him. We'll take him back. Don't worry."
Jim admitted to his affair with Lisa and apologized to me. He fell in love with Lisa's smile during kindergarten pickups and somehow got her contact details. It seemed the feelings were mutual, and they developed a romantic relationship after a while. Jim, adoring his biological daughter Anna, lied about her wanting to meet Lisa and started taking her to meet his mistress. Realizing Anna was fond of her, Jim began contemplating marrying Lisa, taking Anna along. He lied about visiting his parents just to introduce Anna to Lisa, and that's why he was always taking Anna with him. The dress he bought was found during one of their dates. He must not have expected Anna to tell Sean about it. When Jim bluntly stated he couldn't love Sean after Anna was born, I mercilessly presented him with divorce papers saying, "We don't need a father or a husband like you. Let's just get a divorce." Jim sat there, face wet with sweat and tears. He was taken in by his parents, allowing me to spend time back at home until the divorce was filed without stress. Eventually, we officially divorced. One day I noticed Lisa's name among the resignations in a newsletter from the kindergarten. According to rumors among the moms, she had relations with several fathers of the children. Known for liking handsome men, Jim wasn't her only partner. I heard a rumor that Lisa dumped Jim right after our divorce. She was caught dating another man by one of the kindergarten moms, and the photos spread through the parents' group chat, eventually reaching kindergarten. I was reminded of the power of parental networks. The kindergarten's notice cited that she resigned due to health issues, but it was clear she was fired. As for Jim, he had been commuting to work from his parents' place, but after the rumor of the divorce due to his affair spread throughout his company, he felt ostracized and requested a transfer. He's supposed to move to another region next month. I consulted with a lawyer and sued both Jim and Lisa for damages. Using our child for their affair allowed me to claim a substantial amount. I found a house that was up for rent, not too far from my parents, planning to move there when the kids start elementary school. I intended to enjoy a peaceful rural life there with the help from my parents. Back to being a single mother, I have no regrets. I've decided to raise my children calmly in the quiet countryside.
Can you lend me $30, please? Arriving at our home soaked from the heavy snow was my niece. Upon hearing her reasons, it was apparent she was enduring harsh treatment from her parents. Huh? No way I'm lending you money. Got mad by her story, Jack decided to go somewhere specific. Taking the snow-soaked niece and me along, and we all got into the car. My name is Hope Lee. This year marks the 10th anniversary of my marriage to Jack, who is 5 years younger than me and works as a carpenter. I was originally an office clerk at the company where Jack worked, and ours was a workplace romance. Everything moved quickly from there to marriage. Jack is so dependable that it is hard to believe he is younger than me. He is popular at work and respected by his juniors because of his chivalrous spirit. And he was the best boyfriend ever. Attracted to him, I was the one who approached him, starting our relationship. Jack is a man of integrity and seriousness. When we started dating, he stated that if we were together, he intended to think about marriage seriously. Captivated by his dedication in both his work and personal life, I proposed to him after a year of dating. We decided to get married, excited for an even happier life together. But reality wasn't as sweet as I had imagined. Hey, Hope. Isn't the roast turkey ready yet? Everyone's already gathered, and your planning seems a bit off, doesn't it? Right after we got married, the first disaster I encountered was the Christmas's gathering at Jack's family home. Jack is the middle of 3 brothers, each with their own wife. I get along well with the youngest brother's wife, but somehow, I just can't seem to mesh with Ashley, the eldest brother's wife. The incident with the roast turkey was what sparked these feelings. I'm sorry, I can't leave right now because I'm busy with the dance event in the garden. Jack's family lives deep in the countryside, and every Christmas, the whole family gathers for a big celebration like this. I was looking forward to my first family event with anticipation. But the busyness was beyond what I had expected. The youngest brother's wife was supportive and actively helped me, but Ashley was different. She seemed to be watching me just to catch any mistake I made, ready to scold me at the slightest slip-up. Even when I first visited to formally greet them as a fiancé, the welcoming atmosphere was absent. So I suspected she had something against me from the start. However, being openly oppressed like this was beyond my expectations. Every year, the thought of gathering with the relatives made me feel gloomy. Just knowing I would see Ashley made me sigh, and a week before the event, it would even cause stomach pains. You don't have to force yourself to come. If you want, I can talk to my brothers about it. Jack was considerate, offering me an out. But if I didn't go, who knows what they would start saying about me. It might even smear Jack's reputation, and I would miss seeing my in-laws. I love my father-in-law and mother-in-law, who have taken me in as their own daughter. I want to see them and not reduce our interactions. Despite Jack's suggestion, I insisted I was fine and continued to attend the family gatherings. And so, on this Christmas's day, like every year, I participated in the gathering. As expected, Ashley made snide remarks and bossed me around. I am not a long-winded person either. In my work, I am the kind of person who is not afraid to argue with the craftsmen on the job site. Even though these were family gatherings for my husband's relatives, being scolded without reason was infuriating. However, I couldn't disrupt the atmosphere. Despite my strained smile, I tried to stay cheerful and responded to Ashley's comments, only to be met with a sigh of exasperation from her. If you had kids, maybe you'd be able to plan things better. Ashley grudgingly served the roast turkey while dripping with sarcasm. In every other household but ours, there were already 2 or more children. When I got married, I was already over 34, a challenging age to hope for children. Jack was aware of my feelings and never pressured me about having kids. I don't want kids if it means losing hope in exchange for that risk. My dad and mom are just happy I got married, regardless of having grandkids. I hope you understand that I'm not marrying you because I want kids. His words and laughter comforted me. My parents also never pressured us about having children. Everyone considered our feelings and health, leaving us in peace in the best sense. I felt blessed to be in such a comfortable environment until Ashley made a sarcastic remark to me like this. How old are Ashley's kids now? 8 years old, and we just had another last year. Being born a woman means you're meant to bear children. My husband and in-laws are overjoyed and dote on them. After the dance event ended, the adults enjoyed the Christmas's feast and wine, reveling in the festivities. Standing right behind Ashley, I was pouring drinks for another relative, irritated by her pointed remarks made to hurt me. Don't worry about her, Hope. She's always like that. I get nagged by her a lot too, so it's best not to take it to heart. Thanks for your concern. Really, what did my brother see in such a spiteful woman? It's hard to believe those kids are theirs, considering how adorable they are. After finishing pouring drinks, I quickly moved away from Ashley's table. And Jack, along with the youngest brother and his wife, welcomed me over. The youngest brother's wife was pregnant with a new life, and in the back, the children were playing together. In this brief moment of adult-only time, the couple seemed relieved to have a break from the burden. But, witnessing how Ashley relentlessly criticized me, the youngest brother and his wife expressed their dismay, and Jack looked puzzled and concerned. I'm going to have a word with Ashley. This is just too much. She doesn't realize that the uncles who are listening are just giving forced smiles. It's okay, Jack. I really don't mind. Plus, knowing that there are people who understand me like this makes me feel a lot better. You're too kind, Hope. It's ridiculous that you have to endure this. That's what being an adult is all about, I guess. But if it gets too much, please talk to us or our brother. I'm sure our parents would be on your side if they knew. Knowing that everyone was looking out for me made me realize I could make it in this family. If I had no one on my side, I'd probably have left long ago. No way I could deal with this. While harboring such thoughts and finding solace in their kindness, I barely held back tears when I heard a sneering voice from behind. What's this now? Looking all gloomy right at the start of Christmas? Who's been bad-mouthing whom? Brother. There stood Ashley's husband, Dan, the eldest brother. Even as he approached near the youngest brother's wife, he nonchalantly sat down between me and Jack with a cigarette in his mouth. The youngest brother sent his wife and children towards the kids' play area, eyeing Dan warily. Oh, right, your wife got a kid in her belly, huh? My bad, my bad. Totally slipped my mind. Unapologetically, he made a hollow apology while showing no signs of putting out his cigarette. Furthermore, he blatantly blew smoke in my direction, causing me to cough. Think whatever you want about my wife, but keep your complaints out of sight. Well, I guess if you can't have kids, a bit of jealousy and complaining is inevitable. With a crude laugh, Dan then disappeared back to where Ashley and the others were. His words struck deep, leaving me speechless. Can't have children. How many more times in my life will I have to hear those words? How much more of this humiliation must I endure? Biting my lip, I felt the frustration of being childless. Maybe it's better if Hope doesn't come next year. Yeah, maybe. Won't I be able to see Hope next year? Seeing my distressed state, the youngest brother and Jack discussed my well-being. The niece, having overheard their conversation, looked sadly towards them. She was such a good child, vastly different from her parents, treating me more like a real mother than an aunt and adoring Jack. At 8 years old, she should still be in the phase of seeking her parents' affection. Yet during today's gathering, she was the most well-behaved, quietly playing with her newly born sister and others. It's hard to believe she's the child of those parents. I cherish her as if she were my own. That's not true. I'll definitely come next year, so don't worry, okay? Hope. Unable to promise otherwise to my sweet niece, who looked up to me with sadness, I reassured her. Despite Ashley not breastfeeding and thus drinking and making a fuss with Dan, my precious niece was left feeling saddened in a corner. A little hurt on my part is nothing. For these young ones who look forward to seeing me, enduring this much is trivial. With that resolve, I gave Jack a determined look, signaling not to worry. Meeting you all is something I look forward to very much. I wouldn't easily give up such joy. So, don't worry. I'll keep coming next year, the year after. And as long as everyone grows up and stops coming here. It's a promise. Relieved by my words, my niece's face lit up with a bright, happy smile. Being called naive might be fine with me. If I can be a beacon of hope for these little ones, then it's all worth it. Seeing me like this, Jack and the youngest brother's family showed a resigned smile. And Jack gently stroked my hair. Remember, you can always tell me if it gets too hard. You're the most important to me. Thank you. Feeling the love from them, I couldn't help but smile, unaware of the tragic events that were yet to come. As the evening reached its peak, the oldest in the family, my father-in-law made his greeting, prompting everyone to start cleaning up, while other relatives' wives were taking the initiative to clean up. Ashley, still drunk, was happily drinking with the men. I joined in the cleanup, suppressing the urge to ask her if she was the mother of a young child. The youngest brother's wife, due to her pregnancy, was resting inside with the children. It's really a mystery how such good kids can come from that couple. It's unbelievable, isn't it? As I carried a tray of finished dishes to the kitchen, I overheard the wives gossiping about the eldest brother's family. I hadn't intended to eavesdrop, but a comment caught my attention and made me pause. They were shouting at their child for not listening, and it might have even gotten physical. Really? I wasn't the only one shocked by this revelation. The other women were equally astonished. The conversation quickly quieted down as someone shushed them. But the person who had spoken out hastily covered her mouth and began to elaborate. That couple was reported to the police before. A neighbor, worried they were being too harsh on their child, called it in. Child services were notified too, but they couldn't find any visible injuries. The yelling is a regular occurrence heard by neighbors. It's practically everyday gossip. Hearing this unexpected news, I covered my mouth in disbelief, feeling the color drain from my face. Getting frustrated with your child is one thing, but resorting to physical harm or threats is entirely another. However, without witnessing it myself, there's little I can do. Despite this, my niece clearly loves her parents and has never complained about them. She obediently follows their orders without showing any signs of defiance. But if that obedience is the result of intimidation? My mind raced with worrisome thoughts after hearing their conversation. What's wrong, Hope? You look pale. Are you feeling okay? Jack, noticing something was off with me, came over, his concern evident. I considered telling him about what I had heard. But with Ashley and her family nearby, I couldn't risk the nieces getting caught in the crossfire. Deciding to deflect, I shook my head and made an excuse. Maybe I got a bit overwhelmed by the atmosphere. I'll step outside for some fresh air. With that, I put on my jacket, leaving the cleanup to the others, and stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. The ground was covered in snow, with a forecast of heavy snowfall later that night. The ominous clouds made me frown as I remembered the conversation, unsure of my next steps. Yet, I couldn't stand by if the rumors about my nieces were true. As I stood there, conflicted, my niece and her baby sister approached me. What are you doing out here? It's cold. Go back inside and play with your sisters, okay? Hope, will you really come next year? Can we meet again like this? Her uncertain expression and her baby sister on the verge of crying made me realize I couldn't leave them out in the cold. As I pondered the situation, unable to leave my anxious niece alone, I bent down to embrace her gently, pulling her into my arms while she held her sister. Of course. If you're that worried, here. I'll give you my phone number and our address on a note so you can visit anytime. With this, you won't have to be anxious anymore, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps reassured by having something tangible. The brightness returned to my niece's previously anxious face. However, her sister, perhaps due to hunger, started crying, prompting me to hastily return inside with them. After a while, as the gathering came to an end and everyone started heading to their cars, we too decided to leave, leaving behind the eldest brother's family. The youngest brother's family had already left, and our in-laws thanked us for coming and saw us off. Thank you so much for coming today. Take care on your way home, okay? Grateful for my kind mother-in-law's words, Jack and I expressed our thanks and left their home. It was worrisome to leave just the eldest brother's family behind, but the in-laws were there with them. Surely, the kids would be okay. Or so I thought, until, back at home, as the night grew late, our doorbell suddenly rang. Who could it be at this hour? It was past 11 p.m., and such a late visit was rare. As Jack and I exchanged nervous glances and headed to the door, the porch light revealed the visitor's silhouette. The moment we recognized the size of the shadow, both of us were startled and quickly unlocked the door. What happened to you guys? There stood my niece, soaked from the snow, holding her sister. Her hands were numb, and her sister's lips had turned purple from the cold. Despite being bundled up, the temperature had dropped below -9 degrees Celsius in the snowstorm. Considering the distance they walked, my niece was staggering. And Jack and I quickly brought them inside, exhausted from carrying her baby sister and their belongings. My niece slumped down as soon as she entered. After Jack made some milk for the baby, who drank it eagerly, I provided my niece with a warm drink and wrapped her in a blanket to warm up. Gradually calming down, my niece sat up and sipped her tea slowly. What happened? Where are your parents? As she regained her composure, I asked about the situation. She started to explain through tears. It was a 2-hour walk from her home to ours. She had made the journey with her sister, driven by fear that their parents had left them alone to go drinking at a bar, without any dinner prepared or baby supplies left. I want to buy food and diapers for my sister. We don't have a place to stay, so can you lend me just $30? I promise I'll pay you back when I'm older. With that, she prostrated herself at our feet, begging. Seeing her like this, Jack raised his voice. What? No way I'm lending you money. His sudden outburst scared my niece, who instinctively curled up and started trembling. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I won't ask for anything else, just don't hit me. As she sobbed and pleaded, I hugged her tightly, tears streaming down my face. I assured her gently, it's okay. No one here will harm you. Calm down, we won't hurt you. I'm sorry, I wasn't angry at you. My bad. It's okay, relax. Seeing my niece's frightened state confirmed my fears. The rumors about the eldest brother's family were true, not just rumors. They had been living under oppression from the eldest brother and his wife. At that moment, a rage beyond words boiled up inside me. I can't forgive them anymore. Jack, shaking with anger, wasn't furious at my niece. His rage was directed at the eldest brother and his wife for putting my niece through such an ordeal. Unstoppable now, Jack dialed a number, urging us to get into the car. Hope, let's go. Go. Where? I can't leave the kids with them anymore. With that, Jack took us to a certain location. Understanding his intention, I quickly made arrangements in the car. Seeing my niece anxious about what was to come, I smiled reassuringly at her. No matter what happens to your parents from now on, can you trust me? Will you not be troubled staying with us? Upon hearing this, my niece, initially puzzled, seemed to grasp some meaning when we arrived. She squeezed my hand back and nodded vigorously. If you and Jack are with us, everything will be okay. Jack and I, having confirmed this, looked at each other with determination. We had discussed this before. If the rumors were true, we would protect my nieces. Though we hadn't expected to act so soon, our resolve hadn't changed. We brought someone with us and headed to the bar where the eldest brother and his wife were making a scene. Come on, drink up. Bring on the booze. Arriving at the bar, we could hear their loud voices from outside. It was unbelievable that adults could leave their young children behind to party like this. As their voices irritated me, Jack gently placed his hand on my head. Let's put an end to them. Yes. Agreeing with him, I followed Jack into the bar. Unnoticed by the staff, we seated ourselves. The eldest brother and his wife, caught up in their own world, didn't notice us. Taking advantage of this, I took out my phone and aimed the camera at them. Are you guys okay? Didn't you have a newborn at home? It's fine, really. We have an 8-year-old daughter, so we just leave her in charge. It works out. We trained her well from when she was small. She used to get in our way, crying not to leave her. But we made her understand each time. Just a bit of shouting, and she gets scared. She's sensitive to noises, so after throwing things near her, she started obeying us. Now she doesn't complain when we leave her babysitting. It's so convenient. She's always on edge, watching us, scared every day. Isn't it funny? People talk about raising kids without laying a hand on them. But that's just soft talk from adults. Real education is all about discipline. That's what I believe. Their crude laughter, confirming the rumors, was almost a godsend. Jack and I exchanged a glance and nodded just as a man walked into the bar. Welcome, oh, police. A police officer stood at the entrance, causing a stir among the staff at his unexpected appearance. As the patrons around us realized what was happening, the cheerful atmosphere quickly turned tense and uneasy. Sorry for the sudden intrusion. Actually, we've been looking for these children's parents. With that, my nieces appeared. The moment the eldest brother and his wife saw them, their faces contorted in shock. You guys, what are you doing here? Sorry, those kids are ours. Did they cause you any trouble? Perhaps realizing they couldn't ignore the situation, the panicked couple quickly claimed to be the parents. The officer, hat pulled down, gave the eldest brother and his wife a stern look through the gap. You left your children alone to drink at this hour? And on such a snowy day? The officer's sharp questioning threw the couple off balance. Dan tried to laugh it off awkwardly, attempting to deflect. No, we were just about to head home. Just waiting out the storm, you know? Right? Yes. It's not like we abandoned them. We locked the house properly. And we've only been here for a few minutes, right? Faced with the couple's pitiful excuses, the officer turned to the bar owner. Is what she's saying true? I would like to know what time they enter the restaurant and how much they've ordered. If they've only been here 5 minutes, they could have only had a drink or two at most. Officer. They have started to get suspicious of the police officer, who was strangely getting involved in this case. What's the matter? Can't you speak up? Well, Aren't you actually leaving your children and spending hours here? That's not true. We just got here, I've told you over and over. Who are you? Stop making such absurd accusations. That's exactly what we were waiting for. As Ashley loudly denied the officer's accusations, Jack and I stood up, positioning ourselves protectively in front of the children. Why are you two here? We've heard everything from the kids. About you two leaving them to drink, abandoning them, and all the terrible things you've done to these children. We have all the evidence. We know you're lying. Their faces matched as they looked at each other, stunned by my words. Thanks to you, we have all the evidence we need. We can't leave these precious nieces in your care any longer. We'll take them with us, and you'll be answering to the police for your actions. Wait, you can't just decide that. Exactly. Where's your proof that we've neglected our children? Give it up. You've been caught. The bar owner, who had been questioned by the officer, now addressed the couple with a dismissive tone. Look what she's holding. Pointing out the voice recorder I was clutching. The owner implied it had captured their incriminating conversation. Not only is the audio evidence recorded, but she's also been filming you. That officer was brought by them. They called here earlier, and we were more than happy to cooperate. Your behavior has been too much to ignore. It's time to pay the piper. Go to the police and reflect on your actions. With the owner's intervention, I felt a wave of gratitude. The couple tried to protest, but it was clear no one would come to their aid. Everyone seemed to share the same disappointment toward the eldest brother and his wife, probably feeling the same disgust. Though it was another family's affair and they couldn't intervene, the situation had escalated to a point where no one wanted to stop it. You despicable people. Recording our conversation without permission is like wiretapping. That's a crime, isn't it? I'll sue you. Don't be ridiculous. As Jack raised his voice in anger against the couple's futile attempts to salvage the situation. The couple swallowed their breath in fear. It was rare for Jack, who had always been calm and never yelled at anyone, to shout like this. You involved your children in your selfishness, and then you talk about discipline? It's okay to hit them if they don't listen? It should be you, the trash parents, who need to be disciplined. What have these kids ever done to you? They've been waiting for you, feeling lonely yet hoping you'd come back home. And you dare to trample on their feelings like this. Shame on you. The couple grimaced in frustration at Jack's too accurate words. Unable to respond and shifting their gaze away in shame. Do you know what she said when she came to our house? I looked directly into the couple's eyes, who were trying to avoid my gaze. And continued with a sad expression. She blamed herself, wondering if it was because she was a bad child that you left. She never blamed you, not even once. At my words, Ashley turned her face toward me in shock. She kept asking us if being good would bring you back. Children love their parents, no matter how terrible they might be. Forcing my beloved nieces to make such a heartbreaking decision was something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. That's why I'm determined to make them happy. No matter what, we will protect them. That was the strong resolve Jack and I had when we came here. I'm sorry. We won't do it again. We'll take proper care of them. Please. It's too late. Realizing the gravity of the situation too late, Ashley frantically pleaded. I coldly replied. We can never leave them in your care again. She chose this herself. If you're truly sorry and want to repent, never have children again. You two don't deserve to be parents. Seeing this, my niece, clutching her sister, spoke up for the first time against her parents. Wait, don't go. Please, come back. I hate you, Mom and Dad. Don't ever come near us again. For the first time, she defied them. She turned her back on Ashley and the rest, pulling at my sleeve to leave. Jack and I, leaving the rest to the officer, left the bar. Ashley ended up causing a scene in the bar, getting arrested for disrupting business. Dan also caused a commotion and was arrested alongside Ashley. Thus, we successfully protected my precious nieces from them. The officer, a close friend of Jack's, agreed to help out, knowing the situation. I can't stand parents like them. I'm glad I could help protect your nieces. Even though he was busy due to Christmas, he readily offered his help, for which I was grateful. From then on, my nieces legally became our children through a special adoption process. Their story, corroborated by the testimonies from the bar, led to the successful prosecution of their parents for abuse. And our adoption process was smoothly completed. We explained everything to Jack's parents and my sister and brother-in-law, who were furious and decided to disown the eldest brother and his wife. They wanted to take responsibility and help with the niece's upbringing. Their love and support helped the girls recover quickly. And they're now growing up healthy and happy. Being your child makes me so happy. On Mother's Day, the first card she wrote me, blurred with tears, expressed her happiness. And I cherished this blissful moment, tears streaming down my face.
At a wedding of a close friend from a former company, a person I had almost forgotten about appeared. Long time no see, Emily. You've gained some weight, haven't you? Despite it being a long time since we met, my ex-husband, who I divorced 7 years ago, greeted me with such a harsh comment. Tyler. He was the worst kind of man, quick to blame me for our infertility and having affairs with others. You must have been tired from all the infertility treatment back then, huh? How's it been? Did any freak end up taking you, the infertile woman? To belittle me as the infertile woman in such a crowded place. The people around us were appalled. Yet he didn't care and continued to insult me. Eventually, he even poked my stomach, saying, "How much have you let yourself go?" Something inside me snapped. "Excuse me?" Just as I was about to lose my temper, a man came over and told my ex-husband the truth. Hearing those words, my ex-husband turned pale as ice. "I am Emily. I'm now 35 years old. I married Tyler when I was 25. Tyler worked at a real estate agency owned by his father. I also worked there as an office clerk. Tyler, the boss's son, wasn't the stiff type but rather open-hearted and could chat easily with anyone. On the other hand, I think of myself as reserved and on the cool side. Perhaps because of our opposite personalities, I initially found Tyler a bit difficult and never thought we would end up getting married. However, Tyler seemed interested in me from the start and asked me out on dates multiple times. "Emily, are you free today?" Tyler approached me with his usual frivolous demeanor. I made an overtly disgusted face. "I'm going to the salon." I declined smoothly, even though I didn't actually have plans to go to the salon. Yet, the next day, Tyler came back with, "Emily, I know this great restaurant. Want to go together?" I brushed it off again with, "Maybe some other time." This back and forth continued several times, but Tyler never gave up. No matter how many times I declined, he kept inviting me until I finally gave in, and we went out for a meal together. However, when we finally had a chance to talk one-on-one, I realized that despite his usual playful attitude, he was actually a very serious and hard-working person. Whenever I made a mistake at work and I fell down, Tyler would say, "It's frustrating to make mistakes, but think of it as a learning expense. Maybe try working with a lighter heart." He offered positive advice while emphasizing with my feelings. I tend to be negative, so being with someone as positive as Tyler strangely gave me confidence. After several dates after work, we started dating. Our relationship went smoothly, and on our second anniversary, Tyler proposed, and we decided to get married. Tyler has an older sister who had a child the year we got married. Tyler seemed to adore his niece, saying, "I hope we can have our own kids soon." I also love children, so we had many discussions about whether we wanted a boy or a girl and what names we liked. However, 2 years into our marriage, we still hadn't been able to conceive. This month's cycle was a no-go. I was disappointed and down, but Tyler would cheerfully say, "Well, there's always next month." I couldn't help but feel anxious and pressured, wondering, is everything really okay? Tyler, seemingly unconcerned, would reassure me, "Don't worry too much." But he was a considerate husband. His casual responses weren't out of indifference, but an attempt to keep me from taking things too heavily. I had naively thought getting pregnant would be easy once we were married. The reality that it wasn't hit me hard during our first year. In our second year, I began monitoring my basal body temperature, bought folic acid supplements recommended for pregnancy, and took extra care of my health, hoping for a pregnancy. Time passed, and we were still not pregnant. Feeling pressured by relatives asking if we were considering children and friends announcing their pregnancies, I decided to visit a gynecologist. I told my husband, "I'm going to the gynecologist to check if there's a reason." He seemed reluctant about the idea of fertility treatments, asking, "A gynecologist? You mean to start fertility treatments?" I explained, "I just want to see if there's a cause. If there isn't, great. If there is, maybe we can treat it." He pondered for a while before dismissively saying, "Do what you think is best, Emily." He didn't seem enthusiastic about fertility treatments, so I went to the gynecologist alone. The initial visit was just for tests, with results due later. The doctor said, "Please bring your husband next time," so I reported back to him. "I went for the test today." "Oh, how did it go?" "The results will be in 2 weeks. They said my husband should come next time. What do you think?" Tyler, clearly displeased at the suggestion, reluctantly agreed to come after some persuasion. His test result came back without any major issues, though they noted a low motility rate and suggested supplements. 2 weeks later, it was time for my results. Nervously, I went along to hear the results. It seems your fallopian tubes are blocked." Hearing that my fallopian tubes were narrowed, making it difficult for sperm to reach my ovaries and thus making pregnancy challenging, I timidly asked the doctor if pregnancy was still possible. The doctor reassured me, saying, "It's not that you can't get pregnant. A procedure known as fallopian tube cannulation or FT surgery can increase your chances of getting pregnant by 20 to 30%. Relieved that it wasn't complete infertility yet feeling complex about being told I had difficulty conceiving, I endured the abdominal pain from the examination and returned home. At home, Tyler was already relaxing in the living room. I wondered how to broach the subject without making it too heavy. Tyler knew I went to the gynecologist but didn't ask anything, leaving me unsure if he was avoiding the topic out of anxiety or indifference. Finally, I mustered the courage to speak up. "I found out it's hard for me to get pregnant." "What?" Seeing his face cloud over, I quickly tried to cushion the blow. "They said my fallopian tubes are narrow, but there's a surgery that can increase our chances of pregnancy by 20 to 30%. So why not go for the surgery?" His indifferent response hurt, but I swallowed my feelings. "Yeah, I'll try it." The surgery was scheduled quickly, and I underwent a day procedure. The surgery itself was over in no time, but the abdominal pain afterwards was quite severe. Still, I persevered with the thought, I want Taylor's child. Initially, Tyler seemed cooperative, helping with hospital visits and trying to time our intimate moments as advised by the doctor. However, even 6 months post-surgery, I remained not pregnant. As our infertility treatment stretched on, our relationship began to sour. I had thought Tyler was just unsure how to act around me, but it seemed there was more to it. He started avoiding me, knowing that he didn't usually have to work late. His excuses for coming home late or spending his weekends on activities like fishing or golfing felt like distancing tactics. When I confronted him about it, asking if he was avoiding me, he denied it bluntly. "Then why you're coming home late and spending all weekend away? What's going on?" "It doesn't matter. We're not teenagers. Stop interfering with my life." His harsh words stung. Weren't spouses supposed to share these parts of their lives with each other? I wanted to argue but feared deepening the rift between us. Eventually, Taylor's late returns became the norm. and the absence of intimacy led to a complete cessation of our sex life, dashing any hopes of conceiving. After a year of this, my desire to repair our relationship vanished. We had become mere roommates. Ironically, Tyler's absence made me feel freer, enjoying my alone time without the pressures of shared meals, chores, or the looming issue of infertility. It was during these moments of solitude that I realized my feelings for Tyler had completely cooled. One day, as I was about to send Tyler's suit for cleaning and emptied his pockets, something fell out. What's this? Discovering a woman's lipstick and a foundation on a shirt in my husband's suit pocket, I couldn't help but sigh heavily. The shock quickly gave way to resignation. I had suspected as much, given his frequent late returns and the sweet perfume clinging to him. Feeling both sadness and irritation towards my husband, I realized I no longer had the energy to confront him about infidelity. Our relationship had deteriorated ever since we started infertility treatments, and I was exhausted from thinking about it. Having given up hope on conceiving, especially with our relationship as cold as it was and our intimate life non-existent, I muttered to myself about giving up on everything. I decided to divorce. That night, as usual, my husband returned home after midnight. "Welcome back." Startled by my presence in the dark, he jumped. "Whoa, you scared me. You up?" "Yes, I've been waiting to talk to you." "What about?" It seemed he knew what was coming. He sat down at the table, and after a deep breath, I said, "Let's get a divorce." He didn't seem surprised by my words. After a moment of silence, I continued, "You're having an affair, aren't you?" "So, you knew. That makes this easier. Actually, I was planning to suggest we divorce tomorrow. She's pregnant." "Pregnant?" Despite my own deep desire for a child, why her and not me? My mind went blank. Tyler laughed it off as if it was nothing. "What kind of person is she?" Driven by curiosity rather than jealousy, I asked about the woman who got pregnant knowing he was married. "She's 2 years younger than me. Met her while playing golf." "So that's where you've been going? Meeting her while your wife waits at home?" "Yeah, something like that." "You said you wanted children with me. I went through painful and difficult treatments for infertility. Why?" I couldn't help but ask, feeling overwhelmed by sadness. Tyler just laughed. "I said I wanted children, not specifically with you. You worked hard on fertility treatments, huh?" His dismissiveness left me speechless. He seemed unbothered, excited about his new life with his girlfriend and their expected child, while I felt utterly drained. "Just divorce me." "Yeah, I was planning to. But you could at least pretend to be a bit sad, you know. My girlfriend is nothing like you." As he began to belittle me, I fought the urge to scream. Despite feeling hurt and sad, I suppressed those emotions, choosing to appear indifferent and strong. That was the best defiance I could muster. Our relationship was already over. Complaining about your affair won't change anything. Let's just get the divorce over with. Yeah, I got it. I'll submit the divorce paper to the city hall tomorrow." We began preparing for the divorce in a matter-of-fact manner and were officially divorced within a week. I could have demanded property division, but the thought of hiring a private investigator to gather evidence for the divorce was too mentally and physically exhausting. I thought it would be better for both of us to move on as quickly as possible. Although I maintained a calm demeanor in front of my husband, I was struggling to recover from the ordeal. Eventually, I left the company we worked at together and moved back to my hometown. 7 years have passed since then. I am now 34 years old. I had been deeply depressed at the time, quitting my job and spending days crying, which worried my parents. However, after finding a new job that I enjoyed and felt rewarding, I managed to heal from the wounds and my divorce and fully recover. Time indeed is a healer. During this new chapter in my life, I received a wedding invitation from Sarah, a close friend from my previous company. We used to share lunches and talk about work, love, and everything in between. Though we saw each other less after I moved back home, we still managed to catch up over lunch after a year. I was excited to see Sarah's wedding dress and happily marked my attendance on the invitation. On the day of the wedding, I reunited with former colleagues and superiors, reminiscing about old times. Then I noticed someone from afar from I had almost forgotten, my ex-husband. Inside, I thought, this is the worst. But I resolved to ignore him and focus on the celebration. I discreetly took photos of Sarah's beautiful moments, avoiding any contact with my ex-husband. However, my enjoyment was abruptly disrupted when I heard a familiar voice from behind. "Whoa, long time no see, Emily. You've gained some weight," Tyler said, approaching me with his usual insensitivity. It was shocking how rude he could be after not seeing his former wife for 7 years. To think you'd say something so terrible after we just met. Come on, we're exes. What have you been up to lately? I wished he hadn't loudly announced that we were exes in such a celebratory setting. It felt like bad luck at the wedding celebration, and I was inwardly panicking. After assuring him, I replied non-committally, "Nothing much had changed." Then, without prompting, Tyler began bragging about his life. "You know, the girl I was seeing when we were married, she gave birth safely and now we're on our second child." He also boasted about taking over his father's company and becoming its president. "That's nice. Congratulations." My congratulations were hollow, as my only thought was for him to leave. Yet, Tyler continued to gloat about his happy life with his cute kids and kind wife, trying to assert his superiority. "Oh, is that so?" I responded disinterestedly, genuinely not caring. However, Tyler seemed annoyed by my lack of reaction. "If it weren't for an infertile woman like you, I would have had children much sooner." Huh. For your information, I'm not infertile. Huh. Who are you trying to fool? We went through so much infertility treatment, and it all ended up being for nothing. My kid's already 7 years old. I'm so glad I divorced a woman like you. Wow, you're truly the worst. I'm just as glad we divorced. Tyler laughed off my cold response, continuing to mock me as if my feelings were a joke. "You don't have to act tough, you infertile pig. Life must have been tough for you after we split, huh?" Everyone, including me and the other guests, was appalled by Tyler calling me infertile. A person sitting next to us even said, "Hey, that's really rude." But Tyler continued to berate me without care. "But seriously, you've let yourself go too much." After saying that, he poked my stomach. "Hey!" Just as I was about to snap, someone intervened on my behalf, angrily saying, "She is pregnant. How could you do such a thing? Tyler looked dumbfounded by the mention of pregnancy. What? You're pregnant? Yes. Now please leave me alone. But then Tyler noticed the ring shining on my left ring finger and forcefully grabbed my arm. Ow! What are you doing? I tried to shake off his grip, but he was too strong. Wait, why? Are you married? I didn't say I wasn't. But you're infertile, right? Who in their right mind would marry someone like you? I told you I'm not infertile. Despite his unbearable remarks, I couldn't stay silent. What? After divorcing you, I got pregnant with my new husband's child right away. It must have been the stress from you constantly accusing me of being infertile. What? Are you saying it's my fault? Yes, it is. After all, you cheated and then left me for someone else. So, don't ever contact me again. Tyler continued to mock me. Oh, introduce me to the fool who would marry an infertile pig like you. At that moment, someone approached me in response to the commotion. Who's calling my wife a fool? Jason. Jason was my current husband, who had gone to the restroom. After my divorce from Tyler, I was heartbroken. That's when I met Jason, my current husband. Jason, a supervisor at my new job, was well liked by everyone for his kind and caring nature. He listened to all my troubles, from my divorce due to the infertility accusations and my ex-husband's affairs. Although I usually didn't share my personal stories, I found myself opening up to Jason, especially after a few drinks because he listened so attentively. Sorry, this isn't a fun story to hear, is it? No, it's okay. You've been through a lot. It was good that you divorced him. I'm really disappointed in my lack of judgment when it comes to men, I said. Jason always treated me kindly. Eventually, I started seeing him not just as a supervisor, but as a man. It seemed he felt the same way. As we started seeing each other more frequently, we were drawn to each other and began dating. However, having just divorced, I initially turned down Jason's proposal. Nonetheless, he remained a steadfast source of support for me, patiently and passionately expressing his feelings. Gradually, I was drawn to his kindness, and ultimately, I accepted Jason's proposal. I had informed him beforehand that I might be infertile, but he didn't seem to care at all. Sure, I like kids, but I'm not marrying just to have children. We'll try our best, and if we still can't have kids, then it's just the two of us living a good life together. Jason's words helped clear the unease in my heart. After marrying Jason, he continued to be as kind and supportive as ever, and we have been living happily together. Therefore, I never imagined I would encounter my ex-husband in such a situation. Then, upon seeing Jason, Tyler exclaimed in shock. President Collins? Why are you here? As it turns out, the major shareholder of my former company, where Tyler worked, was Jason's company. I was employed at Jason's company, now holding the position of executive vice president. Tyler, responsible for the shareholders' meetings, was aware of Jason's existence. However, it seems he had no idea that I was the executive vice president there. Oh, you're with Brown Construction. Jason seemed to remember Tyler as well. Wife? Tyler was oddly shocked, having never imagined that the major shareholder of his company was my and my husband's company. He turned pale. Colin's wife is Emily? What's going on? With Tyler's mind going blank, I decided to explain the situation. I told him about my job change to Jason's company and how I am now serving as the executive vice president there. No way, that Emily? I can't believe it. Tyler was astonished, his eyes wide with surprise. I've heard you calling my wife by her name in a familiar manner. Could you please stop? Jason seemed quite angry. Other guests who had been listening to our conversation looked at my ex-husband with disdain, making comments like, "What a terrible man. Such lack of decency. And his delusions are extreme." Then, Jason, having overheard a bit of our conversation, sharply questioned Tyler. "Did you, by any chance, call my wife a pig or talk about her being infertile?" His eyes narrowed in anger. Confronted with Jason's glare, my ex-husband trembled. No, of course. I wouldn't say such things to President Collins' wife." He forced a smile and began to grovel. However, his fear was evident as he shrunk and trembled. I decided it was time to make him regret his actions. "You are lying. You did call me infertile and a pig." "What did you say?" With his face turning red as if flames might burst forth, my husband was furiously angry. "Don't lie." Tyler glared at me, then did a complete turnaround, saying, "Miss Emily is a very beautiful woman. She's perfect for President Collins. It's just that she's become a bit more generous because she's pregnant, right? Oh, congratulations." However, it was too late for such flattery. "Emily, maybe we should reconsider our dealings with Brown Construction." "Huh? What do you mean?" "A company that has someone like him can't be trusted. He flips his stance so easily when his position is threatened. It's utterly distasteful. I'm thinking of withdrawing our investment." Wow, my husband seemed angrier than I thought. Inwardly, I offered my condolences to my ex-husband. "Please, anything but that." "Emily, as the executive vice president, you decide. It was your former company, right?" "Well, yes. We originally acquired a significant share of Brown Construction out of goodwill because I used to work there. But their management has been declining, which has been a concern for our company." "That can be." "It seems the management situation worsened right after someone became the president. It might be a good time to sell off our shares." "Please don't. I'm sorry, just not that." "It's too late for regrets. You've hurt my wife repeatedly. There's no forgiveness for that. Well, sell all our shares. Is that okay with you, Emily?" "Yes, of course." "Wait, please. If you do that, our company will truly go bankrupt." Tyler grabbed Jason's hands, but Jason forcefully shook him off. "What happens to your company doesn't concern us." Please. While desperately apologizing and bowing his head to the floor, Jason shouted at Tyler, "You're apologizing to the wrong person." Scolded by Jackson, Tyler hurriedly turned to me. "I deeply apologize for my rude behavior. Please forgive me." He prostrated himself, but I looked at him with cold eyes. Having him kneel didn't make me feel any better. Seeing such a pathetic sight from my ex-husband only made me feel more disgusted. "I don't need your apologies. You're just trying to save face for your company, aren't you?" "No, it's not like that." "That's just the kind of person you are, huh? I have no intention of forgiving you." "Please don't say that. I beg you, please." "Annoying. If you really mean anything, then never show up in front of me again. With that, I left, ignoring Tyler's continuous apologies, with Jackson by my side. Though it was still mid-ceremony, I couldn't bear to look at such a despicable man any longer. As we walked away, Tyler's cries could be heard behind us. Later, feeling sorry for leaving Sarah's special day midway, I decided to call her to apologize. "Sarah, I'm really sorry to leave like that on your big day. I heard about what happened from others. It's okay. I should have never invited Tyler. I'm sorry you had to go through that." She wasn't angry at all. Instead, she apologized. I realized then how fortunate I was to have such a good friend. The next day, at Sarah's request, I watched videos and photos of the wedding ceremony after I had left. Sarah looked truly beautiful and happy, which warmed my heart. A few days later, Tyler, no longer president, along with his father and the board members, came to our company to apologize in person. "Sorry for my foolish son's outrageous rudeness. I truly apologize." Tyler's father deeply bowed in apology. Following Tyler's father, Tyler and the other directors also bowed in unison, saying, "We were very sorry." This grand gesture of apology underscored the significance of our company being a major shareholder. It was clear that Tyler's company would be in a dire situation if it were to be abandoned by our company. However, my husband and I could not forgive Tyler. After the wedding ceremony concluded, we had a proper discussion with the other directors about whether we should indeed divest our shares. The consensus was towards ending our investment, with sentiments like, "We should stop investing. They're unreliable," and "Management has been declining ever since the presidency changed. Now's the time to pull out." Thus, the company policy was set to cease investment. Fortunately, our company has been growing significantly, and divesting from Tyler's company was inconsequential for us. So, regardless of who came to apologize, the outcome remained unchanged. Our company decided to divest all shares in Tyler's company and cease all investments. This incident led to Tyler being removed from his presidential position by his father. "You should never have been president." Tyler's father had completely lost faith in him. I heard from Sarah that Brown Construction is now under new management, striving to recover and stabilize its operations. As for me, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. My husband, Jason, is utterly smitten with our son, constantly taking photos, saying he's so cute, and eagerly helping with everything from diaper changes to preparing baby food. We are looking forward to a happy life together with our son and husband.
Pay back everything, okay? Well, if you do that, you'll be begging for welfare in the near future. Be prepared because I'll also demand a share of the assets. I clenched my fist tightly. But I desperately held back my anger and said with a smile, "Got it. Indeed, such matters do require settlement, right? Then, please make sure to accurately calculate the exact amount of money I've used, okay?" Thus, I handed over my address and quickly returned home. Michael might have thought I ran away seeing me like that, but I wasn't running away. When Michael contacts me again, I'll put an end to everything. I had made up my mind. That day came much sooner than expected. 3 days after meeting Michael again. Michael immediately bombarded me with calls. However, upon answering, Michael just repeated the same words over and over. Realizing that nothing would be resolved unless we met and talked, we met once more. That's when Michael said, "Why? Why are you living in such a huge house?" The panic over the phone was because of my house. Standing in front of my luxurious mansion, Michael truly lost his mind. My name is Emily. Currently, I am a 40-year-old housewife. I met my husband, Michael, 6 years ago. Introduced by the president of the company I was working for at the time. The president likes fishing. One day, he went fishing and happened to meet Michael, who had come with a friend. Michael wasn't interested in fishing, so he ended up talking with the president, who had come alone, out of boredom. Learning that he was single, the president thought he might be a good match for me. The reason being, I had lost my parents early on and was completely alone. Feeling sorry for me, the president, who always looked out for me, thought that Michael and I could start a family together. I could not ignore the president's kindness, and when we met, for some reason, he took a liking to me. Thus, we started dating and eventually got married. Now, I have quit my job and become a full-time housewife. Michael was a very kind person. My in-laws were wonderful people, and they welcomed me as if I'm their real daughter. And for me, who had lost my parents, they were like real parents. Michael's home was a two-family house. The in-laws had built it new when they got married. And one part of the house had been unused since the death of Michael's grandparents. So Michael and I started living there. Although we lived separately, we often saw each other and had a good relationship with the in-laws. However, there was always one discomfort I felt about Michael and his parents' relationship. The fact was, a few years ago, Michael's father became ill and was living in a wheelchair. Michael seemed to show no concern for him at all. For instance, on the day we first met, when we arrived at the designated restaurant, a man in a wheelchair was struggling to overcome a step. I helped him over it. Later, I found out that the man was Michael's father. At that time, Michael's mother had asked Michael to stay with his father while she went to the restroom. Despite being asked, Michael left his father alone and went to the restroom himself. Michael, "I told you to stay with your father, didn't I?" Though his mother said that, there was no sign of regret from Michael. I felt a moment of discomfort towards him, but being praised, indeed, Emily is a wonderful woman. Even without knowing he was my father, you helped him, made me feel good. And I momentarily forgot the discomfort I had felt. First and foremost, I was not informed beforehand that Michael's father was in a wheelchair. Nor did I understand the choice of a restaurant with many steps. During a meal with 4 of us the other day, when he suddenly suggested, "Why not try climbing mountain?" I was utterly taken aback. In any case, I never felt any consideration from Michael towards his father. Michael, don't you think it's insensitive to suggest such things when your father has difficulty walking? I confronted Michael on the evening he proposed climbing mountain. However, he just laughed. "It's impossible for Dad. I know that. It's fine if he doesn't come." Even if he doesn't come, leaving him alone at home is not an option. Proposing a trip he can't even join is just too much. Then, "Emily, you can stay and look after him." I was taken aback by his words. No matter what I said, it never seemed to affect Michael. Every time Michael spoke, I felt increasingly sorry towards his father. However, the story didn't end there. Unbelievably, forgetting such a conversation, one day Michael said he was going on a trip with his mother, just the 2 of them. "With Emily here, Dad will be fine, right?" he said before leaving. And indeed, he went away with his mother. His mother, thinking I had agreed, said with a smile, "Emily, please contact us if anything happens. Thank you for this time." I couldn't say anything and silently saw them off. Then apologized to Michael's father for Michael's selfish actions. Thank you for always caring. It's my fault for being sick, you don't have to worry, Emily. He said this with a smile. His smile brought me some relief, but I waited for Michael's return with unresolved feelings. After that, there were lunches and dinners. Regardless of day trips or overnight stays. Michael planned many trips and went just with his mother. But I always feel bad for Emily. She would say, but Michael responded kindly to such remarks from her. You're usually taking care of him, right? It's fine once in a while. Emily says it's okay. Of course, I never said such a thing, but I couldn't deny it. Every time they went out, I was left to look after his father and take on his care. I felt sorry for his father, and he seemed to feel sorry for me too. Then, 2 years later, his father finally passed away. At the funeral, filled with sorrow, I heard Michael say something unbelievable. Finally we are freed. A wheelchair-bound old man is nothing but a burden. Well, but it was good that someone appeared to take on that burden, so I didn't have to do anything. Seems like Mom was saved thanks to her. Being there was better than not at all. I trembled with anger. To think of his kind father as a burden? Someone to bear it? That was the moment I finally understood what Michael thought of me. He must have had a great time traveling with his beloved mother, ignoring the feelings of his father and me. Even though I wanted children, he would say, I still want it to be just the two of us. But there was hardly any time it was just the two of us. It must have been an excuse. Thinking that caring would be impossible if I were pregnant or had a child. I cried silently, feeling frustrated and pitiful, but it was a funeral. Thankfully, everyone let me be. Of course, his mother didn't mean any of this. At the funeral, his mother's face looked genuinely sad, not like an act. I understand she was happy to be invited by Michael, and she always brought me souvenirs. Of course, my mother-in-law also needs to reflect on her actions. But it seems she regrets them since my father-in-law passed away. However, if Michael had been more thoughtful, he wouldn't have dragged my mother-in-law into such a whirlpool of regret. Ultimately, believing he is the root cause of everything made him even more unforgivable. Since then, we have become a couple in name only. We spoke in front of my mother-in-law so as not to worry her. But when it was just the two of us, we might as well have been heir to each other. Eventually, I stopped caring whether Michael was home or not. After all, he was probably out with my mother-in-law. And now that my father-in-law was gone, there was nothing I could say about it. However, there was a day when Michael was gone, but my mother-in-law was at home. Huh? Mother-in-law? You're not with Michael today? At those words, my mother-in-law tilted her head. What do you mean? Since his father passed away, we haven't gone out together. I've made it a point to say no. What? I told him to cherish you more than me. Michael agreed and said he would be a dutiful husband. I was shocked by her words. Far from being a dutiful husband, we didn't even talk. And yet he had been trying to appear good in front of my mother-in-law by saying such things. I said, I'm sorry to have kept silent, mother-in-law, but there is no love between us anymore. The idea of him being a dutiful husband is ridiculous. There's no way Michael would do such a thing. That's so. Clearly shocked by the truth, my mother-in-law seemed unable to bear it any longer. Even pretending to be happy was a pain. But then, where is Michael going? Every day, every night. He hardly seems to be at home. Indeed. I always thought he was with you. We looked at each other. Now that we realized we both thought he was with the other. The question arose, who is Michael actually going out with and where? That night, when Michael returned late, I confronted him. You're late. Where have you been until this time? Michael paused for a moment, seemingly not expecting to be addressed when it was just the two of us. Dinner, with Mom. Michael mumbled his reply. A clear lie. If he was with my mother-in-law, I wouldn't have said anything. Those words must have come from understanding the situation. But today is an exception. Wasn't your mother-in-law at home? Which mother are you dining with? What's with that tone? You sound sarcastic. Sarcastic? I think the one who lied should be more concerned. I retorted to Michael. Michael, sighing deeply, said to me, anywhere is fine, isn't it? Just for a rare day off. A rare day off? You hardly come home after work, and on your days off, you're out playing. Ever since your father was alive, you've pushed the caregiving onto me. I couldn't help but raise my voice in anger. It seems Michael has his thoughts on my words. But perhaps he cannot retort because they are true. In desperation, Michael also raised his voice. Shut up. Can't you see I kept you here because my mom likes you? Even though you're no longer needed? If you're going to complain so much, just leave. Such harsh words. But I managed to suppress my anger. Thinking I had nothing to say, Michael smugly said, it's going to be tough, huh? If I left you, a housewife and a loner, you would have nowhere to go, right? But you defied me. I have no reason to support you anymore. The barrage of verbal abuse almost broke me. I do not regret speaking up against Michael. I did not expect him to understand. But to be treated this way is unjust. If you're leaving, that's perfect. There's a woman who wants to marry me. I won't have any trouble even if a woman like you is gone. Are you saying you've been cheating? I couldn't help but respond to those words. Cheating? Don't make me laugh. But you just said there's a woman who wants to marry you. Yeah, I'm serious. It's a good opportunity, so I'll have you leave and remarry. And so, we ended up divorcing. The only one who was always crying and apologizing was my mother-in-law. Her actions making my eyes tear up. From meeting at 35 to divorcing at 40, I truly wasted precious time. But I decided to start a new life and do my best. A year after the divorce, I finally adjusted to my new life and regained peace. The president of my previous company rehired me, and work was going smoothly. One day, on my way back from work, I stopped by the supermarket. Tired, I reached for a half-priced meal. Then, spotting my favorite cheesecake in the clearance section and stopping, I heard a familiar voice. Thought it was some lowly old woman. I looked up at the voice. It was Michael. Michael shamelessly peeked into my basket and laughed. Lonely, huh? A half-priced meal? What about it? It's none of your business. As I took the cheesecake and started to leave, Michael said, oh, right. You used Dad's savings, didn't you? Your father's savings? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie. You bought things like diapers when you were caring for him, right? I was taken aback by his words. Of course. And I had permission from his parents for that. Despite being asked to purchase this earlier. There's no reason for me to be told such things by Michael now. That is. I tried to retort, but Michael raised the corners of his mouth in triumph. Pay back the full amount, okay? Well, if you do that, you'll be begging for welfare in the near future. I'll also demand a division of property, so be prepared. I clenched my fist tightly. However, I desperately suppressed my anger and said with a smile. Understood. Indeed, such matters do need to be settled, don't they? Then, please make sure to check the exact amount I spent, okay? Putting on a brave front. Michael laughed. But I did not take his bait and quickly took out a memo from my bag to write down my address. Also, I'm living here now. I'm sure we'll need to talk and you can call me later. After saying that hurriedly, I handed over the address and quickly went home. Michael might have thought I was running away, but I wasn't. When Michael contacts me next time, I will end everything. I had made up my mind. It was just 3 days after our reunion. I was at work. I noticed that Michael had called me numerous times. With so many calls, something must have happened. Just as I thought that, another call came in. I hurriedly answered the phone, thinking that perhaps something had happened to my mother-in-law. Hello? What's up? On the other end of the phone, Michael shouted loudly. What's going on? I'm in front of your house right now, what the hell is going on? I didn't understand what he meant. But Michael was muttering something frantically, almost in a half-crazed manner. I even felt madness in Michael, but again, I asked calmly. You're in front of my house? I'm not home for work right now. Are you talking about a discussion? I don't care about the discussion. What are you talking about? We were completely talking past each other. I sighed deeply. At least it seemed like nothing had happened to my mother-in-law. It's not working over the phone, let's meet and talk. I'll be home in 3 hours. I looked at the clock and said that, then hung up the phone. Michael called several more times after that, but I ignored all of them. After work, I hurried home, and when I was about to reach my house, I saw Michael. Have you been here the whole time? As if noticing me, Michael approached me with a furious look and raised his voice. What the hell is this? So, what is it? I can't understand it without a subject. Hearing my words, Michael pointed at my house and opened his mouth again. Why? Are you living in such a nice house? Michael said this, emphasizing the end of his sentence and spitting as he spoke. I instinctively recoiled. Did you run off with Dad's inheritance? What are you talking about? That's not possible. Michael was furious with me, but I simply brushed it off. It's my parents' money. But he seemed not to be convinced. Your parents? Weren't they long gone? Are you saying you lied? Calm down a bit, will you? Listen, this house was built with the real estate income inherited from my parents. Stealing money from your parents is out of the question. Finally, it seemed Michael could grasp a bit of what I was saying and regained his composure. Yes. My parents had indeed passed away early. However, coming from a family that originally owned a lot of real estate, I, being an only child, inherited everything after their death. The real estate income alone amounts to a massive annual sum of $3 million. Without doing anything, money keeps coming in, totaling my assets to tens of millions of dollars. Of course, I could live comfortably without working. But what I desired was something money couldn't buy, the warmth of human relationships. Working was more about experiencing the warmth of sharing lunches with colleagues, or supporting each other through mistakes than the income. Being completely alone, if I distanced myself from society just because I had money, I would end up truly alone. During my marriage and time as a homemaker, I was happy to feel the warm parental love of my in-laws. Due to the divorce, I returned to work to maintain my social connections. I explained this to Michael and then added, but if I mentioned having money, everyone would come to me for it. Michael, you liked me without knowing I was such a wealthy person. And that made me genuinely happy. Well, probably because you saw me as a caregiver. That's. After hearing my story, Michael seemed to have calmed down. At the same time, he appeared to regret kicking me out. Though he tried to remain calm, his face was pale and his voice trembled. But it wasn't that anyone would do. Because you seemed kind, I thought I could leave my father in peace. He made a plausible excuse and nodded as if convincing himself. By the way, I had no idea you had so much money. You should have told me. Tell you, and then what? No, I mean, like managing it or something. Michael desperately seemed to want to get involved with the fortune, but it was too late. I smirked and said, if we had a child, they would have been the heir. Too bad, huh? Michael's regret seemed to deepen at those words, but he still had no reply. To rub salt in the wound, I said, it's late today, can we postpone our discussion? Was it about settling the caregiving expenses during our marriage? Oh. Yeah, that's right. We should settle that properly. Michael, tormented by regret, seemed to find hope in my words and perked up. However, he was about to be thrown back into hell the next moment. I'm so relieved. I paid quite a bit for your father's hospital bills. If I could get reimbursed, that would help a lot. Huh? Michael was momentarily stunned and turned even paler. While watching his reaction, I said rapidly, let's see, the hospital bills I covered over 3 years amounted to $10,200. Well, since I did it voluntarily, let's just say $10,000. And then, there was the diaper money from your father's savings that I used, wasn't it? About $1,000, right? So, if you just pay me $9,000 after offsetting, that should do. Finally, I almost laughed at Michael, who had nothing to say. The in-laws said during the caregiving, we can't let you pay for the hospital bills alone, that's too much. I never intended to make them pay. But I knew paying for everything would make my father-in-law feel even more indebted. So, I had them pay just for the diapers from the savings. And he didn't always use diapers. With assistance, my father-in-law could use the toilet too. Despite the diaper cost not being significantly high. Michael's pettiness and nitpicking like this led to the current situation. And about the property division? I'm not sure what property you're talking about. But if anyone should receive anything, it's probably me, the one who was cheated on, right? These words seemed to deliver the final blow, and Michael collapsed on the spot. I'm sorry. Then, he prostrated himself on the ground, but such an act held no value. If you have something to say, we can discuss it at our next meeting. With that, I left Michael crawling on the ground and returned alone to my large mansion. A few days later, I contacted a lawyer. I doubted Michael would cling anymore, but just to be sure, I wanted to sever ties with him completely. The lawyer listened to my story and acted immediately. When I visited Michael's house after a long time, a young woman came out. Who are you? Is Michael here? I'm his ex-wife. Hearing this, she looked at me with disdain before going back inside. Michael came out to replace her. Oh, good. You're here. I couldn't reach you by phone. So I decided to come directly to your house for a discussion, just like you did. As I said this, Michael started to fidget. So, I already apologized, didn't I? What value does your apology have? Weren't you the one who contacted me about settling up? It would be awkward if the neighbors heard us, so let's go inside, shall we? Resigned, Michael moved aside and let me into the house. However, I was shocked upon entering the house for the first time in a year. What is this? The hallway looked as if it hadn't been cleaned for days, with visible footprints on the dusty floor. Moreover, used cardboard boxes were left in the already narrow hallway. Peering cautiously into the living room, the young woman from before was lounging on the sofa, glued to her smartphone, surrounded by scattered laundry. Michael hurriedly closed the living room door, trying not to let me see. Lamey is. Since my wife is here, is it okay if we talk here? It seemed the young woman was Lamey, his new wife. Michael guided me to the entrance and suggested we talk there. I sighed at his words, accepting the situation for what it was. What's with this mess, anyway? I couldn't help but voice my concern. Michael sheepishly smiled and said, "It just so happens we haven't cleaned." But it looked more like a chronic neglect than a one-time oversight. I had many thoughts but decided not to delve too deeply. Getting involved was the last thing I wanted. The lawyer then meticulously compiled the discussed details into a document. The settlement included $9,000 I spent and $20,000 for the property division due to Michael's infidelity, totaling $29,000. Michael, as pale as before, begged for forgiveness on his knees. "There's no way I can forgive you," I retorted. During this exchange, Lainey peeked out from the living room. "What is going on?" What does she want?" Things became complicated. I thought so, but realized that if I were to receive the property division, she would not be irrelevant to the situation. The lawyer explained on my behalf to her. Lainey, who had been silently listening to the lawyer's explanation, raised her voice in disbelief once everything was explained. What a pathetic man for being 41. "You caused trouble, so just pay up." But. To my surprise, Lainey made a very valid point. "I'm truly sorry for the inconvenience. Had I known he was married, I never would have caused such trouble." Then, she apologized to me deeply. The lawyer and I exchanged glances, wondering what was happening. You didn't know Mr. Michael was married?" "Of course not." I was deceived. It turns out Michael had been dating 20-year-old Lainey under false pretenses, even lying about his age as 35. Lainey said she became suspicious of women's items in the house when she first came after I left, but was misled into believing they belonged to his mother. However, a few months ago, she learned from neighbors that she was indeed the second wife. Unable to forgive the deceit, she asked for a divorce. But Michael wouldn't accept, leading her to abandon household chores. "It's my fault for being deceived," Lainey said, glaring at Michael, who just smirked. I couldn't help but feel sympathy for her youth. "Can't we do something for her?" "I'll pay for her," I asked the lawyer. "What?" "That's none of your business." "What are you talking about?" Michael, who had been smirking, suddenly started to panic. "It's not unrelated. I lost 5 years of my life from 35 to 40. Do you understand how important those years were to me, a woman without children? She's still young. I don't want her to live a life like mine." My passion seemed to widen Lainey's eyes a bit. Perhaps her harsh demeanor was due to despair in her life. "Understood. The rest is up to Ms. Lainey." The lawyer then looked at her, and she, mustering her voice, whispered, "I want a divorce." Michael collapsed in despair at her words. He had claimed to be serious about her. If he truly was, he should have been honest with her from the start. His mind was likely filled with marrying her and ousting me. Typical of self-centered Michael's behavior. "Is someone there?" Just as things seemed to be settling, a figure appeared from the back of the house. "Mother-in-law. Emily?" Seeing me after just a year, the mother-in-law appeared significantly thinner and staggered toward me before sitting down in front of me. "Michael really did something terrible. I can't thank you enough for all you've done for us." She repeated words similar to those she said when I left a year ago and began to cry. I fought back tears and asked about her well-being. "How have you been? You seem to have lost a lot of weight." "Yes. We've been running out of money lately. We haven't been able to eat properly." "What?" "About a month ago, the cash card went missing. And we don't have much money left. Glaring at Michael, who was in a daze after being abandoned by Lamie. My stare made him panic. His reaction made it clear he was involved in this. What is this all about? At my shout, Michael flinched. It was becoming clear to me. Michael must have rummaged through his mother's cash card, suspecting the balance to be lower than he imagined, and jumped to the conclusion that I had embezzled it. That's why he brought up the property division when we met by chance. Never mind. I don't want to hear your excuses. Listening to Michael wouldn't quell my anger. Mother-in-law, would you like to live with me? Hey, what are you saying? Ignoring Michael, I continued to speak to the mother-in-law. In that case, how about going through the adoption process? The lawyer immediately offered advice. I was all for it. The mother-in-law, with tears in her eyes, asked me again, "Are you sure?" Of course. I answered with a smile. Hey, Mom. Don't be deceived by her. You have a son, remember? However, Michael was desperate not to lose his mother. The mother-in-law said, Michael is an important son to me. But Emily was like a daughter to me. I still can't forgive you for driving her away. Tearing up, the mother-in-law slowly stood up. I'll just go get my things. Then she disappeared back into the house. Leaving Michael dazed at the entrance, the lawyer, the mother-in-law, Lamie, and I left the house. Mother-in-law, please watch your step, I said, taking her hand, and Michael was left speechless. Likely, he had never shown such consideration. Lamie eventually divorced Michael, as informed by the lawyer, who also said Michael had been sued for property division. She offered to pay my lawyer's fees with that division, but I refused. Young as she is, Lamie could surely use the money better for herself. Michael, burdened with paying property division to both of us, couldn't even afford a loan with his salary. I conceded to accept my share in installments, intending to give it to the mother-in-law. Michael would now lead a lonely life, burdened with payments. Perhaps it's best that he focuses solely on working hard. After discussions, the mother-in-law and I went through with an adoption process, giving her a new home and happiness. I'm so glad to have met you, Emily. The mother-in-law's gratitude, ironically thanks to Michael, made me vow to do more good. I decided to use most of my assets to support orphans and young people despairing of life, sharing the happiness I've found in believing that brighter days always come for those who keep living. I'm set for life with a marriage of convenience. You will be poor and have to struggle in hell. Danny, with a smirk on his face that seemed to look down on people, hurled words at me. Despite my attempt to relax elegantly in the hotel lobby, Danny's shrill voice grated on my ears, leaving me feeling unpleasant. After all, the fact that Danny had remarried a company president's daughter made me wonder where he had met such a person. After all, Brianna is the daughter of Clark Industries. Danny's laughter, typical of a middle-aged man, seemed rather childish to me. However, hearing at Clark Industries made me tilt my head in confusion. It sounded familiar. Which company? Oh, that one. After giving it some thought, I remembered Clark Industries. Danny's face lit up with a "isn't it amazing" smile. Ignoring him, I struggled to suppress the laughter welling up inside me. My name is Katie Morgan. I am 35 years old and live with my husband, Danny. I work for a real estate company, our family business. However, I'm still tasked with clerical work, and my father, the president, handles the important management policies. As an only child, I am expected to eventually take over the company. There are executives older than me, so I face the pressure of becoming president someday. Although I've told Danny, who is 3 years my senior, That I work for my father's company, I've chosen not to discuss our family business too much. I don't want to bring work home, and Danny, having only a high school diploma and working for a moving company, feels inferior. Of course, moving is a tough job that requires physical strength and the ability to quickly transport large amounts of goods, a skill only professionals have. I don't care that Danny only has a high school diploma. I understand his feelings. So I'm careful not to mention my university degree or my future as president in our everyday conversations. We met through a friend's introduction. A college friend had hired Danny's moving company, and he was the person in charge. Initially, Danny showed interest in my friend, but she already had a partner and declined his invitation. However, they got along well, so she introduced me to Danny instead. Looking back, it was an unusual way to meet, but Danny's carefree nature was somehow appealing to my meticulous self. After several dates, we became a couple. Being in my late 20s and at the right age for marriage, I decided to marry Danny after a year of dating. Thus began my life as Danny's wife. Our marriage started without any issues. Danny's parents were incredibly kind, always welcoming me with a smile whenever I visited their home. Considering the trouble some friends have with their in-laws, having a good relationship with mine was fortunate. However, Danny's job was demanding, often keeping him out late. Being physically taxing, he would return home exhausted. Despite the fatigue from work, Danny never neglected our life together. While it's something to be grateful for, I sometimes wished he didn't push himself so hard. Thanks for always waiting up for me. He even thanked me for simply making dinner and waiting for him. I felt lucky to have such a wonderful husband. However, our peaceful days began to crumble about a year after we got married. Hey, why haven't we been able to have kids? One night, as we lay in bed, Danny casually brought it up. His tone was slightly irritated, which surprised me. It wasn't that I hadn't thought about having children. We weren't actively trying for a baby, but given our active marital life, I believed we would eventually conceive if we were patient enough. It's just bad timing. We've only been married for a year, so maybe it's not something to worry about so much. I knew there was no rush for children, but to reassure Danny, I deliberately spoke in a relaxed tone, saying, "It's still okay." Huh? Don't you know? Among couples who live together without contraception, about 80% conceive within a year. Danny mentioned this percentage with a tone more assertive than usual. Within a year, 80%. To me, who had little knowledge about pregnancy, this figure seemed incredibly high. Is that so? If you're that keen on having children, shall we both go get tested? Thinking that finding out if there was a clear cause would be the quickest solution, I suggested this to Danny. However, his reaction was not what I expected. What? What are you talking about? You think I'm the cause? It's obvious that infertility issues are usually on the woman's side. There's no point in me getting tested. Danny's contemptuous words, spoken in a tone I'd never heard before, made me doubt my ears. I hadn't said that the cause of infertility was his. I merely suggested we both get tested since we didn't know where the issue lay. Yet, Danny took it as if I had accused him directly, and further implied that the cause must be with me, the woman. Really? I wanted to say more, but I was so shaken that replying was all I could manage. Of course. So, just you go get tested. I'm busy with work. I have work too. Your job is just a placeholder, right? Just coasting by in a company your dad got you into. I wasn't just coasting by at the company. Although I'm currently doing a lot of clerical work, I'm learning management skills from my father to eventually take over the company. I try to be considerate of my superiors And there are times when I feel not fully recognized and get down about it. Danny just didn't know about my struggles. That night, it seemed like anything I said would only be met with sharp retorts from Danny. We went to sleep with our backs turned to each other, enveloped in a heavy silence. From that day on, Danny's way of looking at me completely changed. I'm home, and the dinner isn't ready yet? What time do you think it is? Useless at making kids, and can't even do housework. What a useless wife. One evening, when I came home late after discussing future plans with my father, Danny yelled at me for not having dinner ready. I'm sorry. I just got home 10 minutes ago. I'll make dinner now. Please wait a little. As I quickly responded, Danny muttered, "This is why daughters of small company presidents are." As if my company was to blame. Though I hadn't told him. My father's real estate company is not small at all, it employs hundreds of people. But I knew that saying this now would be meaningless. I'll make it quickly, so why don't you have a drink and wait? Danny loves drinking, and it could somewhat soothe his mood. It's a bit sad to rely on alcohol for our relationship. But being verbally abused by Danny was something I couldn't stand. If alcohol could help ease his mood even a bit, I thought it was worth it. The next morning, Danny's mood hadn't improved much. He left the house saying, "Make sure to have dinner ready today," in a dismissive tone. I sighed and mentally went over my schedule for the day. I had taken a day off to visit the gynecologist for the fertility tests Danny had mentioned. Even though I was the one who suggested the tests initially, the fact that Danny refused to participate and I had to go alone was somewhat unsettling. Complaining won't help. If there's a chance the issue lies with me, I must start fertility treatment as soon as possible. Danny has always wanted children. And I've found myself wishing for a child sooner rather than later. Although there's no need to rush. I've heard that the chances of getting pregnant differ significantly between one's 20s and 30s. If treatments are necessary, it's better to start them sooner rather than later. The gynecologist's office was busier than I expected. And I was called into the examination room an hour after checking in. I underwent an internal examination and blood tests, with the results to be provided next time. It would be shocking if the cause was mine, but I could take appropriate measures. Regardless of the outcome, I vowed not to get discouraged. I went for fertility tests today. When Danny returned from work that day, I reported on the tests. Since it's probably your fault, it's good that you got tested. Let me know the results as soon as you find out. Yes. Danny's assumption that the infertility issue lies with me irritated me. Undergoing fertility tests required a lot of time and emotional energy. I couldn't help but feel a little support from him would have been nice. 5 years have passed since then, and I've turned 35. Despite continuing our efforts to conceive, we have been unsuccessful. And Danny seems to have given up on having children with me. Often returning home late or not at all. When I asked him where he had been, he said he had been out drinking with colleagues and then singing karaoke until morning. His behavior, reminiscent of a college student's, deeply exasperated me. My work had become busier, leaving little room for thoughts of childbearing. But Danny's recent actions were too much to ignore. It was clear he no longer prioritized our family. One day, while Danny was out and I was cleaning the house, I noticed his smartphone left in the living room. He forgot to take it with him. As I picked up Danny's phone to bring it to his room, it rang. A call. The caller ID displayed, Brianna Clark. Assuming it was someone from work, I pressed the call button to inform her that Danny had left his phone at home. Hey, Danny? You're late. I've been waiting for 30 minutes. Where are you? Hurry up, or we'll miss the opening. Hearing her flirty voice, I was taken aback. Hello? Can you hear me? Hurry up. Today's our long-awaited date. The word date startled me, and I ended the call. My heart wouldn't stop racing. Who was this woman? She mentioned a date. She clearly wasn't someone from his work. He's been cheating on me. Holding undeniable evidence of Danny's infidelity. I clenched his smartphone in my palm as if to crush it. Brianna mentioned our long-awaited date. This suggested a long-standing affair. I was shaking with an indescribable rage. While I was struggling with infertility, Danny was casually cheating with another woman. No wonder he had become distant lately. He had no use for me anymore. Unforgivable. I wanted to make Danny pay. I began gathering evidence of his affair from that day forward. Collecting proof of infidelity was surprisingly easy. Danny's phone lock was set to his birthday, so I accessed it without difficulty. The call history was filled with Brianna Clark's name. Opening the messaging app, I found exchanges of embarrassingly affectionate messages with Brianna, which made me feel nauseous. I took photos of these proofs with my own phone. I returned Danny's phone to his room and spent the day as if nothing had happened. After a month of a now thoroughly cold marital life, I went to work and was called into the president's office by my father, the company president. I actually have something important to discuss with you today. I couldn't hide my surprise at the seriousness in my father's voice. Is that true? Yes. That's why I'm counting on you from now on. I returned to the office, deeply shaken, and continued my work in a daze for the rest of the day. That evening, Danny told me he wanted to separate. I had been considering when to bring up the separation since finding evidence of his affair. But Danny broaching the subject saved me the trouble. Yes, let's get divorced. Really? Danny seemed surprised that I agreed to the divorce so readily. His face unable to hide his delight at the prospect of being with his affair partner, Brianna. While irritated by Danny's expression, I signed the divorce papers he presented. I can submit these tomorrow if you'd like. I'll be moving out of this house, okay? Are you sure you can handle the mortgage on your own? I had anticipated Danny would want me to leave since he liked this house. So I asked him in advance. Oh, yes, it's fine. Despite Danny's demanding job and not so high salary, I doubted his financial stability. However, since he initiated the divorce and was the one having an affair, I felt no obligation to pay the remaining mortgage. I packed my belongings and left the house 3 days later, returning to my parents' home nearby. While my parents seemed eager to say something about the divorce, their anger boiled over when I told them about Danny's infidelity. They repeatedly assured me that leaving such a man was the right decision and comforted me. I then threw myself into my work, trying to forget about Danny. A year flew by, and I marveled at how engrossed I had become in my job, to the point of losing sight of everything else. One day, as I was relaxing in the living room, my father approached me. Why don't you take some time off and go on a trip? It's going to get busy from next month. Seeing how hard I had been working recently, my father suggested I take a break to clear my mind. Indeed, I had been feeling overwhelmed with everything that had happened, and a trip seemed like a good idea to get away for a while. So, I took up my father's offer and traveled to the Oregon. It was my first solo trip, and I was both nervous and excited. The air in Oregon was crisp, seemingly purifying my weary soul. The locals who guided me and the manager of a pub I spoke with were all incredibly kind, gradually healing my heart. I had booked a hotel in Smith Rock, known as the biggest and most famous in the area. After checking in, I relaxed in the lobby with a welcome drink, feeling the travel fatigue melt away. Just as I was jokingly considering moving to Oregon, a familiar voice caught my attention. "What are you doing here?" Turning around in shock, I saw Danny. Unmistakably my ex-husband, entering the lobby with 2 large suitcases, accompanied by a young woman who appeared to be in her early 20s. Her skin was youthful, her makeup flashy, and her nails painted red. Despite the cold in Oregon, she wore a short skirt with bare legs. I stared at Danny and the woman in shock. "Why are you here? And who is this woman?" I didn't really want to know, yet I found myself asking out of reflex. "Her? Let me introduce you. She's Brianna, my new wife. We're on our honeymoon. Can you believe it? She's the daughter of a company president. Pretty impressive, huh?" Danny, seemingly happier than before our divorce, volunteered information about Brianna being the daughter of a company president, even though I hadn't asked. So, Brianna was the Brianna Clark from the phone call. Realizing he had been captivated by such a young woman filled me with disgust. "Are you on a solo trip here? How pathetic." Even though he was the one who initiated the divorce and had been unfaithful, his harsh words angered me. Brianna, too, looked at me with a smirk, lifting the corner of her eye as if amused. "Hey, Danny, is this your ex-wife? She looks like an old lady, hurry up and check in." Irritated by her mocking tone, I glared at Brianna. Danny, as if agreeing, casually put his arm around her waist. "I'm set for life with a marriage of convenience. You will be poor and have to struggle in hell." Danny smirked disdainfully, throwing those demeaning words at me. I was trying to relax elegantly in the hotel lobby, but Danny's shrill voice made me feel terrible. And to think, his new partner is a company president's daughter. Where did Danny meet such a person? After all, Brianna is the daughter of Clark Industries. Danny's laughter, typical of a middle-aged man, seemed rather childish to me. Hearing Clark Industries, I was puzzled. It sounded familiar. Which company? Oh, that one. After a moment, I remembered Clark Industries. Danny's face lit up with a "isn't it amazing" smile. Ignoring him, I struggled to suppress the laughter welling up inside me. "You know the company, right? Her family is rich, and they easily paid off the mortgage for this house. Katie, thanks for divorcing me so easily." Danny's sarcasm didn't affect me at all. "Yes, I know it. It's in the biggest building in LA, right? I've seen and even visited it." When I responded calmly, Danny reacted, "Oh, you've been there? Then you'll understand. Being the daughter of a company that owns such a large building means she's loaded. Divorcing you was the right decision." Danny's smug smile was evident, but I simply nodded, still calm. "That building belongs to our real estate," I mentioned casually, as if just remembering. And both Danny and Brianna looked at me in disbelief. "What do you mean, our real estate? That building? Oh, my dad worked hard to rent the most prestigious office there. I don't know if your company is in real estate, but it's not some cheap building." Both seemed to disbelieve my words. I hesitated for a moment on how to proceed. But since we were already divorced and Danny's pride was no longer my concern, I continued. "Yes. I know how prestigious it is. I was there when my dad signed the contract to buy it. Wasn't it about $100 million? Recently, he's been complaining, though. A tenant hasn't been paying their rent." "That would be your company, right?" "In fact, my father is a real estate magnate with assets worth $160 million. And Clark Industries is just one of the tenants in one of those buildings. The tenant of that building changes regularly, but currently, it's Clark Industries. My father has been troubled because they haven't paid their rent for several months." "Huh? Not paying rent?" Brianna looked shocked but then laughed off, saying, "That can't be right. Our company is doing really well. Of course, we can pay the rent. You won't fool us with such a silly lie. Brianna's shrill voice echoed. Sighing deeply, I realized this woman wasn't going to listen to reason. I took out my phone and called my father. Dad? I'm here with the daughter of Clark Industries. Can you send me a photo of the demand letter for the rent? After quickly explaining to my dad, he sent me a photo of the demand letter for Clark Industries. I showed it to Danny and Brianna. With this speed, it's unlikely anyone would suspect the demand letter was fabricated. See? You can tell after looking, right? There's a 3-month delay in payment. If you don't pay soon, we might have to initiate a lawsuit. What will you do? The word lawsuit made Danny and Brianna's faces turn pale instantly. Come to think of it. Lately, Dad has been really on edge, yelling about sales and firing a lot of employees. Watching Brianna mutter like this, Danny couldn't take it anymore and shouted. Lies. You're just trying to deceive us and break us apart, aren't you? You still want to get back with me, using dirty tactics. Taken aback by his loud voice, I remembered all the unkind words Danny had hurled at me during our marriage. And now, seeing him so elated with Brianna, the heiress, I was determined to set the record straight. Which mouth is saying that? You think I still have feelings for you? Ha! Ridiculous. I've been over someone like you for a long time. I actually feel sorry for Brianna, caught by you. Marrying her is obviously for her money, right? Just like when you married me, all concerned about appearances. Wanting to get married quickly and have kids. And who was it that left me when he found out we couldn't have children? Who called me useless because of infertility? It's all your fault, yet you think I'm still in love with you? You're delusional. After unleashing my pent-up frustrations on Danny, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Danny, on the other hand, looked infuriated, being mocked by me. You arrogant old hag. You'll just end up a barren spinster while we're planning to have kids. And live happily after this trip. And now you bring up some nonsense about Clark Industries being in rent arrears. Knowing that Clark Industries was actually performing poorly. Danny, in a panic, tried to blame all his misfortunes on me. As if delivering the final blow to Danny, I said this. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm 4 months pregnant. Just entered the stable period, so Dad suggested I take this trip to relax. I've got the doctor's permission, of course. Indeed, after divorcing Danny, I found a new love. He was my boss at work, and also a subordinate of my father. He supported and encouraged me when I was mentally struggling. He supported me wholeheartedly at work and was in favor of me becoming the next president. I discovered I was pregnant with his child just 3 months ago. Upon learning about the pregnancy, we immediately got married. It was a whirlwind marriage, but we received a grand celebration from our colleagues. The pregnancy has been progressing smoothly, encouraged by my father and husband. Which is why I was on this trip. Before parting ways with Danny, my father had mentioned that he would retire as president next month due to health issues. It turned out he had diabetes, and this prompted him to decide to step down. As a result, I will inherit my father's assets. This also made accepting the divorce from Danny much easier. I felt confident I could live well without Danny. Danny exclaimed in shock when I casually mentioned being pregnant. You're pregnant? Then, were you using contraception when we were married? What does this mean? Danny was utterly confused and frustrated. Contraception? I never used it. Remember, I told you I had fertility tests done at the clinic? I said there were no issues. So, the problem was with you. Sorry about that. As I said this to Danny, I could see his face contort with frustration. The problem was with me? Does that mean Brianna and I can't have children? Why did I divorce Katie and marry Brianna? As Danny muttered almost deliriously, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Wait a minute. What do you mean, for what purpose? I feel betrayed too, not knowing you were infertile. Brianna, upset by Danny's self-centered reasoning, lashed out at him. I decided I couldn't deal with them any longer and concluded with, given these circumstances, please ensure we have no further contact. And Brianna, regarding the rent for Clark Industries, I intend to pursue it until fully paid. If you plan to continue renting that building, please settle the overdue rent promptly. Otherwise, we will take legal action. From now on, I wish to have nothing more to do with either of you. Goodbye. Leaving Danny and Brianna arguing behind, I briskly walked back to my hotel room. Upon returning from the trip, my husband greeted me with a smile, saying, "Welcome back. Sorry for not being able to do much around the house." Was everything okay? Of course, everything was fine. I'm just glad you could get a change of scenery. Thank you. My husband gave me a kind smile, and I felt a great sense of relief. Since marrying my current husband, I've felt secure every day. Completely forgetting about Danny. I haven't seen Danny since we unexpectedly met during the trip. What I'm about to share comes from what I've heard through my father's connections. Since that incident, Danny and Brianna's arguments have become incessant. Despite marrying Brianna thinking she was a wealthy president's daughter, Danny discovered that Clark Industries was heavily in debt. To make matters worse, there was news on TV every day about an employee from Clark Industries embezzling millions from clients. It seems Brianna's father was aware of the misconduct, but tried to cover it up to protect the company's reputation. However, once the scandal broke, Clark Industries' stock prices plummeted, causing the company to lose its credibility beyond recovery. With employees resigning in droves, the company couldn't possibly afford the rent, prompting my father to take legal action against them. The future of the company looks bleak, with 100% of the blame lying with Clark Industries. Danny, having lost the substantial fortune he thought he'd gain, is furious. Trying to marry a wealthy heiress was too good to be true, making Danny's anger misplaced. Brianna, upon learning Danny was infertile, accused him of marriage fraud. Furthermore, after our hotel encounter, I demanded alimony for Danny's infidelity through a lawyer, burdening both him and Brianna with debt. Their constant quarrels eventually led to their divorce. Shockingly, after divorcing Brianna, Danny called me, begging, "Please, Katie, marry me again. I have debts beyond compensation." Brianna made me buy everything she wanted, then left without paying a dime. "You're the only one I can turn to. I'll do anything for you. Please forgive me." His pitiful plea was nauseating. The fact that he was still after money, just like when we were married, was utterly disappointing. "No, thank you. I have no desire to be involved with you ever again. I'm going to be happy with my husband and our child. So please don't contact me again. Goodbye." After ending the call, I immediately blocked Danny's number, ensuring no further disturbances from him. Danny, now devoid of a wife and money, faces a lonely future. Given his infertility, remarriage might be difficult, but more importantly, who would fall for someone like Danny, who ridicules others so readily? I wish him luck with his debt repayment, detachedly thinking it's none of my business. I'm looking forward to my life with my upcoming baby and husband, cherishing our future together. Professionally and personally, I'm savoring unparalleled happiness.